Okay, today's video talking about Facebook ads here again. Also LinkedIn ads for you LinkedIn guys or gals that are running those ads instead. You're more in a business to business capacity, which those are for. I'm going to show you, or more so tell you here, how to actually get more results out of those ads quickly and easily. You could get more money out of what you're doing. Same exact ad spend. Also, or if they're making enough money for you in terms of ROI, how to start to, or help you scale your ads so you can, ultimately generate 2 or 3 times more revenue overall, or more clicks from the same exact ads, depending on your current situation. You're just getting started, or you just need to be able to, you like it already, what you got, and you want to exploit it for the full, whatever, anything you can get out of it, i.e. scaling. There's a whole conundrum about what is now that Facebook and also LinkedIn has actually changed how long they let you have for the primary text or introductory text, as they call it on LinkedIn. Given that they give you a lot more real estate there to use in the last year or so, do we actually want to fully take advantage of that? Or if you were ever wondering, what would happen if I actually did write a big paragraph of text there, or even multiple paragraphs of text there, right at the very top of the ad, above the image is what that primary text is for, that section is for, to make the whole ad, of course, taller, specifically by adding, instead of just a line here like they used to be able to let you add above the image, what if we added a whole bunch of content, a whole bunch of lines? If you're wondering how much that can actually get you in terms of increased results, better ROI, or just more clicks, which also is kind of tied together, of course, as you know, if you've been doing it for a while, I'm going to end the discussion right here about whether you should capitalize on that or not. Of course, there's always situations where the opposite's going to be true, and that's anything to do with PPC and anything that I mentioned in terms of money-making PPC strategies on this channel. Respectively, I found the longer ads there, and we're talking about newsfeed ads, the longer it is, the better results you can get potentially if you use my story strategy here, which is what the increased ad space that Facebook/LinkedIn lets you use to use more than your standard little bit of primary text or introductory text to actually tell a story. If you haven't noticed, this is not what other people are doing. That there certainly are people that have figured this out. They use that space to get the user hooked in by telling a story. Ultimately they click less. Respectively, it gets people to click through more because it gives them a reason to actually pay attention to your ad, which then results in higher click-through, which results in more money. Higher click-through, of course, results in more clicks for the same money, which means more profit. But I'm going to tell you how to actually do what they're doing, how to tell a story in the ad, and ultimately take advantage of now the capability that you have now to make a longer ad or make a long ad, what that can make for you. I actually have case studies here that show you, and more than a couple different examples here of where I've done this already, the storytelling method. What we've got in terms of an increase in click-through rate here, how much more, or in general, how much money we're making from it. And I give you an actual hard example of an ad, what I've written before, so you can have pretty much the exact formula to be able to do this for your own business starting immediately. So you don't have to scratch your head and wonder, how was he explaining it and how do I do this exactly? This is going to tell you. So anyway, having gotten all that out of the way, I will get into the meat here, and I'll start with a quick overview of what this strategy actually is, and then of course how to do it, and then the results. So like I said at the start of the video, there's primary, so above the ad, where I'll let you have text above the image on a newsfeed ad, there's this primary text is what Facebook actually calls this. On LinkedIn it's actually called the introductory text. Now I played around with this you'll find a lot of different things published elsewhere. So if you see other numbers elsewhere, trust me, I actually tested this for myself. Technically, Facebook for this primary text here says that you're only supposed to have 125 characters. That's what it used to be. Now, if you're wondering, how is it that people get all this 3 paragraphs of text above their newsfeed ads? They're doing it because they've caught on to how much it works, and it's a novelty yet. So anything that's a novelty also generally works better because of it. You have less banner blindness, and when people are scrolling down their newsfeed, it looks something. If it looks new, it'll get a higher click-through rate. Of course, because there's more text there. By the way, it looks more like a personal share, which if they're scrolling down their newsfeed, they're trying to block out as quickly as possible the ads from the non-ads. It's just like if you get your mail, what do? You go to the garbage can, you say junk, junk, this is personal, junk, and you just start trying to sift out the crap from the stuff that you want to actually read. And as people go down through the newsfeed, they're doing the same exact thing. So anything you can do to actually kind of trick the user into at least starting to read the text will get you a better response rate. Of course, you need good follow-up. You got to have something worthy of reading to go really make money. But you got to get the user's attention first of all. And if it's too easy and it looks too much like a textbook ad, you're not going to get a good return. So, respectively, they say they could, though, only give you 125 characters here. You can, technically, I haven't gotten, there is, to see if there is a limit. I've tried to put in 15,000 characters. Facebook let me do it. So basically, unlimited for all practical purposes. Respectively, once you get past 500 characters, that's the time in which the ad will not show anything more on Facebook itself as the ad shows up, but there'll be a see more text link directly underneath it. So you have, let's say, your 500, you have your ad here. This is a really crappy rendering of what a newsfeed ad looks like. You have your 500 characters of text. There'll be a see more link here, assuming this is your image here for your image part of the image ad. Like I got here, it'll say see more. You click see more, and then you'll see the other, potentially 15,000 other words of content that you put there, which you can use that, like I said, to take advantage of being able to tell somebody a story. The longer they read it, the more you hook them into the story, the more the click-through ultimately will happen after that, or in general, to your site. So respectively, I just wanted to throw that out there in case you were wondering, because I had to do this myself to figure it out and get accurate information. And yes, what I'm saying will work, even though most people will say you only got 125 characters there. It's open to everybody now. And because it works, nobody's talking about it. Let's just put it that way. For LinkedIn itself, before we get into this, you actually do have a hard limit in terms of how many characters they'll let you have here. I use 600, so through testing it, 600 characters is the absolute max that they'll let you put there. So they call it introductory text, the text that goes above the image in the newsfeed ad there, which LinkedIn calls newsfeed ads something slightly different. I forgot what they call it anymore currently. But the actual text above the image in their actual, digital equivalent of a newsfeed ad on Facebook is called introductory text. You only have 600 characters to get your message across. So if you're going to tell a story, you have to do it. You only have so much leeway there to be able to tell a story, and there's not a lot you can say in terms of telling a story in 600 characters, but you can start to get the user hooked in and tell the rest of the story on your site, which is almost as good anyway. Okay, and the strategy will still work. And respectively, you write a story, the first 600 characters worth will be on your introductory text section of your ad to take advantage of the strategy, and then the rest will have to see on the site. You can actually say underneath it, in parentheses, click to the site to see the rest of the story physically, okay, for LinkedIn. Respectively, they'll let you have 600 characters. after 175 characters, it'll do the same thing Facebook does, see more. And you have to click see more to read the other 425 basically there, 600 minus 175. So anyway, and this is also not, the information out there is all incorrect as far as I found. You can actually put 600 characters there, therefore you can use this strategy. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before you say, oh Corey, you know what you're talking about, you can't put 600 characters there or whatnot. Anyway, getting that all out of the way, what makes an ad work, or what makes copywriting work, a great, if you're not talking about remarketing and you're trying to use Facebook or LinkedIn ads to get totally new people who've never been to your site, never heard of you before, and get a profit from it while doing it, which is difficult to do in general, starts with, as far as I found, the top way to make an ad produce an 8-to-1 return in terms of like at least $8 of revenue for every $1 ad spend. You start and you use that ad to start telling a story, and then they tell the rest of your story on a landing page that you're taking them to. Most people, when they're starting out, think, I sell tennis rackets, so let's put a tennis racket and say tennis rackets for sale on my newsfeed ad, and we'll send them to a page that it's an order page for a tennis racket. Unless that's groundbreaking new technology where there's super demand, that's not usually going to work, okay? You need to finesse, you need to smooth people a little bit. You got to get them, you got to help them out, get them engaged, and then you got to follow them up with other marketing ads generally to get it to work. Not to say that can't work, okay? It certainly can, but it's certainly way, way harder. You can take it easy on yourself and get returns faster if you go the story route that I'm telling you here. In general, all the copywriting, which is, the writing text, which is supposed to be set up to sell somebody some information, like it's a sales pitch in writing, copywriting. Copywriting, all the greatest copywriters that go way back decades, if you notice, you read like sales letters that these guys would write, it was always that you would use stories in their copy. It wasn't by accident. This is a commonality in all the, where the people that were making money, like the highest paid copywriters, their copy, in which they had room and ability to write a lot of text, they usually did write a lot of text, and they would use stories as a key part of what they were doing almost every time. You'll notice that if you go and you read stuff by Dan Kennedy and so on and so forth, Gary Halbert. And so, but with that, and why I say that is, so it's effective in general. That's why they always seem to converge to do that, regardless of which person it was of the top copywriters out there, because it works. People, for some reason, they don't use telling a story anymore in PPC ads because they think PPC is something different. All the same stuff that worked 100 years ago for an effective ad on a newspaper works now. The psychology hasn't changed in 100 years. The channel has changed, but the core concepts are the same. If you have the capability to have 4 pages or whatnot to write so-called sales copy to convince somebody to take the next action with you, or just get them one foot in the process of starting to order from you, you take advantage of all that text. And of course, because the longer they're engaged in it, your text has to be really good and really good at sucking people in. The longer they read it, the more likely they are to buy. And so your goal is just to get them to read one line, to go to another line. They're not intending to read it all when they start, but it's just like a good movie. After a while, you just have to see the rest. That's the way you should think about this. And in order to actually get this to work the way that I've gotten it to work, and the way that you want it to work in the future. And so with that, you have a hook. Stories are good because you can actually hook people in, and instead of it being boring, like the tennis racket does this and it's been tested for this, people don't give a crap. Even if you're interested in tennis rackets, it's not that intriguing. But somebody who actually had a good tennis game because they bought this new racket and they explain you're kind of their journey with buying crappy tennis rackets and then finding this racket, and then they beat this person that they never could beat. Now that's something that anybody will basically read. Therefore, why having and telling a story in your PPC campaigns, that you're taking the page out of the old playbook of what's worked, many years ago before PPC, is going to work to increase your PPC results here. And also, especially because barely anybody does it, obviously people are catching on, people are using the additional capability to write more text on a PPC ad in the primary text area, like I said, but barely still, proportionally, less than 10% of marketers that do PPC think about this or know about this for sure. So we'll just, to keep it simple, it will work for you today if you use it starting today. So your goal is to use the first part of when you tell a story, which starts on the ad and ends on the landing page you're taking people to, a hook. You get the first 2 or 3 lines, you got to make them think, I have to. Not I want to, I have to hear what the outcome of the story is. And then you got them. You got them enough to where they'll click through to your site. Now you got them on your site. And then you just got to get them to read the rest of that story. Once they have, they're not going to forget your product is woven into that story. They're not going to forget that story. So maybe even though they're not going to buy a tennis racket today, when they go buy a racket, they will. Or sometimes they'll buy right away. But if on top of that, you follow them up with other remarketing ads that talk about how you're having a one-time, 10% off this month only for the July sale that you're having. And so if you're going to buy this racket, this is the time to buy it. And you also go through with other remarketing ads with reviews of that racket, testimonials of some other people who use that racket to build up, further bridge the gap from, that was a really cool story and I should buy that racket too. I am going to buy that racket. So anyway, the psychology behind how this stuff works and why, I gave it to you already here. Now how do we actually implement this in reality? So I talked about basically all you're doing is you're writing a story. The first part of your story for the user that goes over, which when I say story, well, the go-to that works the best is a customer success story. This is what I use 90% of the time on my ads if I'm trying to work in a story to my overall marketing funnel, my PPC sales funnel here, for getting new prospective people who don't know anything about our company yet to get them start involved in the process of learning about our company. Then, so the first part of that story, like I said, goes in the top part of the ad. Now, here's how I kind of phrase it to get that hook in there, get their hooks into them so they they need to be able to see the rest of that story. That's your goal with this ad. So you take your standard newsfeed ad, and I'm going to say something like, and this is an example from the product itself. Some rich people have lifts in their garage so that can put cars below their garage and then above. So it's like a little mini elevator. And so you pull the car in, and you can push a button, the car goes down to the second bottom floor, and then now you can park a car directly above it. Personal car lifts is one way to phrase that. Ran a campaign, and then explaining what, to tell a story about a customer that used this product. Nobody wants to, if you write a story that's only about, oh, this product's great, and da-da-da, people are going to be skeptical of it, and it's not going to work, it's not going to be interesting enough, it's not going to hook the user in. But if you could tell somebody about a story in which there was ups and downs, which like a movie happens, you start out, when there's problems and then the problem gets resolved, that's how you can think about, doing your story here. To give you an example of what we did in this particular case, the customer that the success story is based upon is named Mark, or whoever it is, obviously you're dealing with. Mark's not sure this was going to work. So the lifts, he wasn't sure it was going to work. I wonder what kind of garage he has or whatever. And that's an interesting product. I'm not sure how that actually works. Okay, I'm interested enough. I at least want to see what they're talking about. That's what you want. And then they read the second line, and then they say the same thing again. Pretty soon they've read, 10, 12 paragraphs of text for the whole story. So anything where, that pretty much got the point there. That's what you're going to have for your primary text in general for the first line. Because you can have more text on at least on a Facebook ad, you can tell the rest of your story right there in the primary text of that Facebook ad. So you can tell most of that story right there on the Facebook ad. To get better results, this isn't going to work every single time, but I would leave out the bottom, very ending of the story and make the person have to click through to the site to see the story. Or you could say at the bottom of your primary text that has the story on it, to see pictures of, or to see more photos of the particular the situation Mark was in. Click on the link and we'll show it to you. So on your image here, you have a picture of Mark's garage and some really intriguing image, like no stock photography. That stuff barely makes any campaign work, by the way. You gotta hire a photographer. If it was easy, other people would be doing it in your market already. Hire a photographer and actually get an actor to look like, surprised or something. That's what's going to capture people's attention as they're scrolling down Facebook, because it looks not like an ad. So therefore, people will notice it, and then once you got their attention, now you got to deliver in terms of the text. Mark wasn't sure it was going to work. Assuming, with this particular campaign, we were using the lookalikes targeting option, which Facebook matches all the customers that you have before, or people who've been to your site before, with all their users, and they find people that are most statistically likely to be interested in your product. So when we ran this ad, Facebook already knew who would probably be interested in that personal car lift or their garage. So when they see the lift there, they're the type of person who, if they saw a lift there, showing Mark's shocked face and then the lift there on the image together in some form, then because a lot of those people in our target audience probably already would be interested in that lift, but also they see Mark and they want to see Mark's story and see what this stuff all is about. That's an ad that will pick up and get noticed and get clicked through at a high rate. This is in general what you want to do. And like I said, your story goes up top, but the first line has to be Mark. It has to tie in the image there of what I gave you here, and the text here explains what's in the image to some degree. And then you have the rest of the story there. You don't give it all to them; they have to go to the site to see the rest of the story. And the story can be written pretty much in like a blog post format. At the end of the story, you have a link to the product page where somebody can go and review the product, and if it's a product that's over $500, I'm going to link them to another page that has more information about that product to build up the user's demand for that product, if you will, and then go about things that way. But for that type of ad, what we did there, we had a headline. This isn't the exact text, but close. Personal garage list. You basically, in the headline, you just want to copy a formula that works. This is what it is. This is why I did this the way that I did it. Personal garage lift. So basically just saying in the headline what it is. So you can just tell the user what it is, but so they know what they're looking at in the image is. You have the tennis racket there, and it says, new carbine tennis rackets, but a really shocked image of a person that's shocked, and then Jane had used the racket, but this happened. So what you're trying to do is basically, it's almost like writing clickbait. But you want them to read the second line, and then pretty soon they're clicking the see more, and then they're reading the whole story. Okay? And then when they run, the story is so good, they want to see the rest of the photos. They go to your page, you say click on the image, you can see the rest of the story and the full photos that we have. Like I said, and then that gets them at the bottom of the story interested in the product a little more, and you send them to the next page that really goes into the details on that particular product. This is actually very similar, by the way, of what people do with Taboola and Outbrain and what works there. So what people use on Taboola and Outbrain is not what people use on Facebook and LinkedIn typically, whereas they should. Whereas on Taboola, it'll be like one cute trick to melt body fat. The reason why people do that is it's the same thing. I gotta figure out what it is, and they click and they go to the same type of article. Okay, you were just doing it on Facebook. The description on this ad is going to be like, see what Mark says about, and then insert the name of your product there. So usually a product has a product name, and then this is just the general description of it in the headline, or in the heading, I should say. Personal garage lift. See what Mark says about the latest XYZ model of product. Okay, so they can obviously see this is a company who's promoting this, which if it by itself would be boring, who cares? I'm not going to take my time. I was already looking for something to make me laugh or to entertain me. I'm not going to go look at your site. But because you're going to tell me that somebody like me who has nice cars like I have, and I don't have room in my garage, and I've seen those before and I was curious about it, I will read a funny story about the product that can potentially give me some value in terms of education here. So anyway, one thing, if you don't know about Facebook ads, if you can get over a 1% click-through rate on Facebook ads, you're already doing really well. The higher the click-through rate, the higher the ROI on your campaign. If you get the click-through rate up closer to 2 or 3%, you're home free. It's very difficult not to make money at that point in terms of driving totally cold traffic to your site and get it to convert. Why? Because the cost per click goes way, way down, or that keeps going down the higher the click-through rate is. So the whole mechanism here is just about generating low cost per click by having something that looks totally, interesting or goofy, even if you want to say that, to be able to, as the way to do that for your company, instead of your standard ad that promotes the product, which will get, a 0.5% click-through rate, and so you're basically paying $2 per click versus 40 cents. Respectively, the content's good enough, it'll get shared. You can pay, 15 cents per click if you're good at writing a good, funny, entertaining story, because the shares and then the clicks on from the shares don't cost you anything. And the people that make a lot of money on social media ads, Facebook and LinkedIn, that's what they're able to do. You don't have to do that to make a profit, but that certainly can blow things out of the water. So your goal should be to write a content that's valuable enough. Everything I told you here, your goal should be it's good enough and funny enough that it will get shared. That would be like the pinnacle of what you're doing here. Okay, so that's the general formula. What I did here for this market, and it really did it in this market here, even though that's not my exact copy because I can't give you that. This is the general formula. Like I said before, you got to be able to remarket to people. So rarely you're going to take somebody who's looking for family photos and I'm like half hungover from the night before and I'm just looking for something to do and I found the ad that had the funny story on it, I'm going to buy it now. You got to have a whole series of remarketing ads usually after that. I'll have a remarketing ad that shows up the next day for the user that says the benefits of that garage lift product that they read the funny story about. A limited time offer with a 10% discount code that's only good for the next 7 days for that exact product that spontaneously appears. And then another ad, if they're not quite sold on the product itself yet, or buying it just in general, another ad that talks about the features of that product itself. And so the features ad points to a page that has a whole blog post about the different features or a whole long page about it. The benefits ad goes to another page that talks about all the benefits, so they can see it as much, they can read into detail on that as much as they want, and the limited time offer then can just, of course, go directly to the product page to order it. But those ads rotate out and they work as a part of a system to take somebody who really who understands why they should buy it to get them the rest of the way. And so, respectively, it works as a package. The click-through rate, like I said, though, with this particular general style of ad that we did here for this particular market, I got a click-through rate of about 1.7%. So again, if you can get closer to 2%, it's really easy to be able to make money as long as you have a product that's not under $100. anything over 100, this general formula can work pretty well. If you can get closer to 2% range in terms of the click-through rate, and you know how to set up your remarketing ads. With that particular campaign, 861% ROI on that, with that general formula in use there, and all of the components I mentioned working together. So if you know about Facebook ads in terms of new clicks to the site, to get totally new people, the over 800% ROI is real decent. So that's already good for Google search ads. Facebook ads is even harder. So part of what I will admit, what got the 800 plus ROI that most people kind of would accept for, as for their company, the lookalikes engine helps. So you're not going to be able to do well if you're just targeting people who like cars in this instance, because it's people that have a lot of cars and are car enthusiasts that bought the product. If you just do that and you have this ad, instead of an 800% ROI, you may have a 300% ROI. So if you don't have the ROI that you want right away, eventually you'll get it. You just have to be patient and let the ads run for, sometimes a few months, but just have a low budget that you can afford to lose. And then as long as the ROI is slowly creeping up, you will eventually get there. Respectively, if you don't have a lot of traffic to your site already, then the algorithm has nothing to look at in terms of comparing their users to the users you want, and it'll also start out with a lower ROI. But if you have, at least 100 visits a day to your site, respectively, the lookalikes algorithm can work, you have the chance to make that 800+% ROI without having to wait more than 1, 2, 3 months itself. I've seen it done. We have done it. So part of it is the targeting and then having the data on your customers and being able to utilize that. Then the other half, if you use this formula, assuming you have good, decent lookalikes data already to use that can, for Facebook and or LinkedIn to compare your site visitor and their traits to their users, you should be able to do something similar for your market. Apart from all that, I mentioned I had other companies in which I was going to share the results. 2 other examples that I had, first of which, so that right there was B2C. If you're selling to businesses, B2B, there's a LED sign company, which, if you don't know what LED signs are, they come in small ones, really big ones, where it used to be, obviously signs, they weren't electronic. Now, like, you can have anything you want, you program on a computer, the sign which just has LEDs on it, you can Google it if you want, basically is the best way I can explain this, but you can put, people sometimes use it to put their business name on it, sometimes people use it to sell advertising on it, because they park it on a truck next to the road, and then you can buy space on there. And now actually that use case by itself, which you got to think about your customers, or what customers are, it doesn't have to be the most common use case, but what's a customer that isn't a use case where there's not a lot of information about, using your product for that use case. Interview that customer that has used the product that you have or service for that use case, and then compensate them obviously if you have to, so you could tell their story in the form of this ad here. In this particular case, this person worked with us to be able to have a story about, and anytime you have like a white paper where you're talking about the ROI from the product, that works extremely well for anything B2B related. And so then in this particular case is, what is the ROI on an LED sign advertising business? Everybody wants to know that information. So we capitalized on that. It worked well enough that we were running LinkedIn and Facebook. On the combination thereof, between the two, a 2.3% click-through rate on those ads altogether, because that's your click-through rate. Yes, you have to write a good story, but obviously the other half of it is making sure you have content that's super in demand. You get both of them down, you can get over a 2% click-through rate on these newsfeed ads itself. And the ROI of that campaign was way higher than even this one I told you about before, but the garage lifts. 1,792% from that particular case study. that was in the form of quote unquote story, and this kind of an ad here that I laid out here before for you. And this is the formula that you basically start out using. Maybe you can tweak it, come up with your own system, but it's from this general formula that I use every single time I'm going to run a story, promote a story from now on. And like I said, this stuff works routinely enough. As long as I can get access to the content that I want, that I know the person in that industry wants, that will really capture their attention, and we're going to need to drive ads or put ads on Facebook or LinkedIn to get totally new traffic to the site. This is my first go-to. So really works. You should consider it if you're trying to do advertising to new people on Facebook and or LinkedIn right now. The last example here is for a booking engine. So think of, there's a lot of industry-specific CRMs out there, like construction companies have project management systems where they can, as they have consumers, generate become a lead through their website. The lead comes in and they can track the project all the way to completion. And so there's software just for the construction industry that manages that lead all the way to being a customer, and then however long they're a customer. And there's software like that for just spas. There's software like that for people who sell like used DVDs and stuff like that, as weird as it seems. In that particular case, like I was telling you before on the B2B side, if you can explain what the return is and you have a customer success story that you can actually show the math, the content almost every time is going to work for a B2B company where you can do that and follow this general formula that I gave you here. In this particular situation, I can't give you the exact market, but I gave you examples of like what kind of software I was talking about when I talk about booking engine. With that, we ran LinkedIn ads, and this particular case, we didn't actually do like a straight up case study. It was, we were telling a person, more so with this general thing here, where Jane wasn't sure that this was going to work for her spa business. And so if you want to buy that spa software that helps you manage the bookings online and then manage the spa goer, if you want to call it that, client, whatever, all the way through the lifetime or lifespan of the relationship, yes, it sounds great to everybody, but how do I know if I invest? The biggest risk is my time doing this. It's going to take 100 hours to set this up and learn it. I want to see not only what the reviews are, but what's in detail. I want somebody to tell me what everything, a real user, what they experienced from start to finish, what went bad, what went right, why is it over, is the overall pros worth all the cons in terms of the BS, setting it all up, beyond just what the ROI is. Well, how hard is it going to be? How quickly will it work? What can happen in the future after you've used it for a while? What other things did it break in my company? So we told a story about that particular user's journey, which obviously isn't that hard. If you're in that market, how easy is it to go find a customer and just interview them and ask them from start to finish how it's went, and then package that up in a story, a customer success story, which you're not going to lead on. It's a customer success story in the ad right away because people won't buy into it as much. You just talk about how the customer, a real business customer in that market, tried this, and they tell all about it, essentially. Winds up being, obviously it looks like you should buy it, and you get them slowly introduced to and acclimated to wanting what you have, and the goal is to have them come to the conclusion that they should buy what you have themselves. They're reading it and they think, yeah, I should buy that, but you've never actually told them to buy it. You just simply told them the story of what somebody else went through. Anyway, in this particular situation, lookalikes wasn't, in terms of the ad targeting, wasn't what we used. This was on LinkedIn itself. And this is a very profitable way to run ads. If you can do it like a lot of B2B, what we do, instead of targeting, general so-and-so list of companies, for something like this where you're targeting a certain industry, we can go out and collect manually, find out what the personal email address, because you need the personal ones, personal email address of all the people in that exact industry. All the CEOs' personal email addresses in the spa industry, for instance, if we're targeting the spa industry. Upload that email list to LinkedIn. Now our ad that speaks directly to spa owners, in which shows the success story of somebody from start to finish using our product that's designed for the spa industry, obviously people are going to click on that. So, and it's not that difficult to do. Data mining, if you don't know how to do that, just let me know and I'll tell you it's very easy to do. To get a personal email address list to run a targeting campaign like that on LinkedIn or even on Facebook as well. We do it on Facebook as well a lot. Usually if you're going to do it on LinkedIn, we're going to do it on Facebook as well anyway, because the same person, doesn't matter which site they're on. In that case, we had so targeted there and such perfect content, we had a 3.7% click-through rate on that LinkedIn ad. Which LinkedIn, you're normally going to get higher click-through rates than Facebook, just to let you know if you weren't aware of that. And on top of that, 1,583% ROI on all the revenue, short-term and then actual lifetime revenue from those people after, generated, divided by the ad spend we actually paid to get those leads and those actual customers through the system of the ad and telling the story like I told you, and the strategy I mentioned on this particular video today. So you can see what really can happen with this now, showing you a couple other different types of examples here for what it can actually do for your business. If you're selling to other businesses, you've got to do this. Even if you're selling to end consumers, you should definitely consider it as well anyway, because it certainly could blow what you're doing out of the water. And anybody, obviously, this can take some time to get a story together, and you have to get a copywriter to help you do it, because usually the story ain't written the right way and it won't work. I'll give that general disclaimer out, but if you do, chances are you'll nail it. You'll make quite a bit of money. So as far as the LED sign company, by the way, I wanted to go back to that a second. That one the targeting was set up for lookalikes as well. So LinkedIn, Facebook was looking at the traffic that was going to our site, because we had plenty of traffic to that LED sign vendor site, and then it knows the traits of people who are in market for LED signs, and then gave us all the people on their LinkedIn and Facebook sites so that we could have our particular case study of the advertising business for that LED advertising business, LED sign advertising business. We could get it in front of them. And so anyway, if you're starting out, lookalikes and using the email list those generally are go-tos here. But yeah, I'll wrap it up with that. Hope you enjoyed the video. I have a lot of other videos on this channel about other money-making PPC strategies. If you haven't seen any of those, you should definitely check them out. I have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build campaigns the way that are guaranteed basically to work every time that you do them or we do them, and in which we use for our clients here to guarantee the results. If you have any questions about this particular tell the user a story strategy, if I pretty much call it that, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves a comment on this channel within a day or two, typically. But yeah, with all that said, good luck to you. Hope you do definitely try this out. And if you like the video, I hope to see you on my next video. Has our next new PPC strategy as it comes out another day or two from now.